Saturday, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and this morning I was out on my bike for the first ride on a road bike that I have had since 1987, 33 years ago. To give you some historical context, in the UK we had Thatcher starting her third term as Prime Minister. Americans had the Iran-Contra affair in full swing. Michael Douglas in the cinema was getting his rabbit cooked, not a euphemism, in Fatal Attraction. And in my parents' garden, I was popping 3-inch wheelies on a Doors disco, complete with bike rack for school bag. So it is very fair to say I've had a little bit of time off. It's also fair to say that the ride on this thing was at times mildly terrifying. More on the ride in a bit. First of all, let me just bring you up to speed on the bike and a few bits and pieces I've done to it in the 5 days since I got it. Firstly, if you are new to my channel, the idea is that as somebody who has recently started doing obstacle course races, I'm going to branch off on a tangent and next year try for an Ironman triathlon. Currently, I have 0 triathlon experience, so an interesting challenge hopefully. Now, after a summer of indecision and problems and bikes that got ordered and then sent back and then weren't in stock, I finally settled on this, my Cervelo P3X. For a triathlon, it's supposed to be a pretty competent bit of kit and hopefully something that can take me all the way from where I am now through to and beyond successfully completing my Ironman. So what have I done to it since I got it? The answer is not a lot, and I shouldn't need to. It's supposed to be pretty much ready to go. But from the front, I have fitted my Profile Design hydration system to it. My thinking was that grabbing a water bottle off of the frame down here or from behind the seat while riding along, especially as a new rider, might not be the most simple thing to do. And actually after today's ride, I'm convinced it wouldn't be the most simple thing to do. I'm glad my water is going to be stored up here. On top of it sits my Garmin head unit, so that's giving me all my data, my speed, my cadence, my distance, my time, heart rate, all that sort of stuff displayed up there. Not yet fitted but will be soon is my Garmin Headlight. It's got a standard GoPro mount. The trouble is most of the GoPro brackets I've seen don't work or are big and ugly. At the back I've got a regular old water cage to hold a standard bottle. My thinking is that my hydration bottle up front is going to hold my water, regular water, and then out back I'll hold fuel fluids. So my electrolyte and carbohydrate mix will sit behind the saddle. Down below that I have my Garmin rear light. More on that in a bit because it's a very clever bit of kit. What else? Down low I have my toolkit. And up top I have my fuel, snacks stored, my energy bars and so on. Talking of the toolkit, the plan is that this bike currently runs inner tubes in the tyres. I'm going to take those out so I can run it tubeless with sealant. I'll then keep one of those inner tubes as a spare and carry it around in case I have a complete failure of the tubeless system. So a bit of work to do on the tools. There are only 2 other things I want to do to the bike. One is that it needs a power meter. I'm probably going to get pedals that display power, maybe a crank-based system, not quite sure on that yet, but I need some means of putting the power and cadence information up to the Garmin head unit, especially because I'm using TrainerRoad. One of the cool things about TrainerRoad, it will send the data from TrainerRoad app into the Garmin head unit so that when I'm riding along it will tell me what power I should be generating and get a proper workout. And the last thing is that on Monday I have a guy called Callum coming, bike fit expert that I've been recommended to use, who's going to put me on the bike and make sure that I fit it as well as possible. Now it'll be interesting because today on the ride it felt okay. I'm assuming he'll come up with some adjustments, so it'll be interesting to see what he says. That's on Monday. And then that will be it. The plan will then be that there should not be anything else needed other than general maintenance from now until race day. So on to today's ride. How did that go? Well, there were scary bits and there were really fun bits. Let's do scary first. Clipless pedals. I've been using clipless pedals for a few months now on the Wahoo kicker bike when I do my training in here. And so I've got pretty comfortable clipping in and clipping out quickly and easily. And it was exactly the same on the bike. I had no problem finding the pedals, clipping in, and when I came to a stop, clipping out. So why was it scary? It was scary because it feels like something that, although straightforward and done without issue, is always on the verge of going from easy to, oh my God, I'm sat on my arse and everyone's laughing at me in an instant. I never felt 100% comfortable. I'd approach traffic lights, for example, and clip out way in advance so that I could put my foot down and be 100% confident. What I want to be able to do is to approach those traffic lights that are red, slow down, come to an almost stop, the light changes and I pull away and off I go. But that felt a terrifying prospect, and I did not do it. I guess one gets used to such things over time. I wonder though, I just wonder if you ever get 100% used to it. I've heard far too many stories from very competent cyclists who have done thousands and thousands of miles who still fall off. So clipless pedals, mildly worrying. What was also mildly worrying was steering the thing. It felt like, what's the best way to describe it? The best way to describe it, if you are used to riding, as I am, a wide barred mountain bike, imagine putting your hands almost touching each other and how twitchy that would make the thing feel. And I guess that makes sense because your hands aren't very far apart. Even down here on the dropped bars, the hoods, what do you call these ones down low? I'm going to call them hoods. They're not hoods because hoods are the drop bars. Let's call them on the drop bars, your hands are still quite close together. It started off feeling like there's no way I can even steer this thing, but I got used to it. In fact, by the end of the ride, I was able to stand up and put some power down. I could certainly negotiate my way through traffic. Steering got better down here. It did not get any better no matter how long I rode for up on the aero bars. Man, the aero bars. I watched a bunch of videos last night on YouTube on how to ride a bike with aero bars, and it suggested bringing one hand on the aero bar and then back and then the other arm on, and I thought, what a bunch of babies, just get on and go. The first moment I took a hand off and put it on the aero bar, just that half second from the drop bar to the aero bar caused me to wobble about all over the place, and immediately I just thought, screw this, screw that. I never felt comfortable at all. I did get to the point where I could sit on the aero bars and pedal along in a straight line. I think at one point I negotiated a very gentle bend while in the aero bars, but at every opportunity I wanted to get back onto the drop bars. Whenever something was in the road, a manhole cover, some imperfection I could see up ahead, I wanted to be out here. If there was a turning coming up, any possibility that I might need to stop, there's no way I felt like I could swerve if something ran out in front of me. I mean, could I even swerve if I'm down here? Probably not. I just have to run over whatever it is and hope it's smaller than me. Absolutely certain I will get used to it, but right now I think it's because I can't make that transition from here to the brake fast without looking for where that bar is. Maybe once I get that movement sorted I'll be okay. For now, if I hear a car coming, I'm sort of looking for the bar and not great. Talking of hearing cars coming, my bike has a radar. Well, my bike, the Garmin Light has a radar. Did not have that in 1987, and it is amazing. It is so good that I will do a full review on it at some point because it is worthy of that. But in a nutshell, here's how it works. Somehow there's a radar in here, don't ask me how, and it can see cars coming. Magic. What it will do is display information up on my Garmin head unit indicating what's coming from behind. I actually set off thinking I haven't really set it up properly to work with the head unit. How's it going to display that information? And almost immediately when I pulled out onto the main road here, it popped up and told me cars were coming. It's incredibly simple. Whatever you have on your head unit, so whether it's the map up or whether it's the data, speed and distance and so on up, if it sees a car coming, it will put a very thin strip of information up on the side of the screen, which is basically dots approaching the top of the screen. Top of the screen is you, the dots are the cars. So one dot moving up the screen is a car coming from behind. If it's going at normal speed, the whole thing glows orange. If it's coming up real fast, it glows red. When it's gone past, it glows green. absolutely superb. 2 cars, 2 dots, 3 cars, 3 dots. How is it doing that? Made no mistakes. It doesn't get confused by cars going in the opposite direction. Absolutely superb. Really confidence inspiring when you're riding along, and especially if you're trying to practice getting down here, to know that it is clear behind. I would never rely on it 100%. I'm not going to indicate right and just pull out into traffic, assuming there's none there because the Garmin told me. I'd still look over my shoulder, but it's nice to know that it is probably clear when you're riding in a straight line. Certainly nothing came past me that I didn't know was coming past me, so there's no surprises. Absolutely brilliant bit of kit, loved it. In terms of the bike itself, very simple. It is fast and it is comfortable, which is good because I wanted a bike that was fast and comfortable. Fast, I mean, I have a very small frame of reference to judge it against, but man, it was fast. At one point, I went downhill. I didn't pedal downhill, I rolled down the hill. I was too frightened to pedal. The thing was just gaining speed on its own. Well, gravity helping, I guess. It just got faster and faster. The thing was flying along. And I'm sure regular cyclists are going to understand completely the idea of getting out of the wind. It's a new experience to me coming from a mountain bike. Getting tucked down here just makes you whiz along. It was rapid. I cannot wait to get comfortable on the aero bars so that I can really put some power down and see how fast it will go. So, bloody quick. What else? Comfortable. I didn't feel safe, but I felt physically comfortable on the aero bars. That position just felt sustainable. I didn't ride for very long today, but the time I was on it, I thought, yeah, this feels okay. I could do this for a while. It's harsh in terms of bumps. It's very rigid. Again, my frame of reference here is poor. I have a 20+ kilogram full suspension e-bike to compare it against. That thing will ride over a Prius and you wouldn't even know something had been in the way. This felt juddery on road imperfections. If you hit anything remotely big, pothole wise, it felt horrible. It felt like, oh my goodness, I'm going to break something. But I guess that's, again, just standard road bike stuff to a certain extent. It was not unpleasant at all. Certainly when the road was nice and smooth and fast and flat, that was great. But it wasn't a huge problem elsewhere. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I only came back because I thought it was going to rain. I'm going to get out on it tomorrow and have a proper ride, a long ride. Going to go out nice and early before traffic is out and just enjoy it. And I should have expected as much because I posted a few photographs of it online on some of the triathlon forums I'm on and so on, and the vast majority of people all said, yeah, that bike is an absolute beast. You are going to love it. It will be fast. You're going to be in the Ironman. That is the thing to be on. Congratulations. Enjoy your new ride. That was the vast majority of opinions. But it wasn't the only opinion, because there were a few people that expressed some feedback that I am no stranger to and forms the second part of this video. Because I heard a few times that this bike, bought by me as a new cyclist, or almost new cyclist, is the epitome of all the gear and no idea. Had to have some lunch, cannot do this bit on an empty stomach. Now, I will grant you that there are undoubtedly some people that will buy top of the range equipment and think it is a substitution for doing anything else in their chosen activity. They won't train, they won't practice, they won't try and improve their knowledge. They simply think that having obtained whatever it is they've got, that is enough. But that is not everybody. There are a large number of people, and I am one of them, who want to do as well as they possibly can in their activity and are simply willing to commit to that, and commit a lot, whether that is in terms of time, effort, training, sacrificing time spent on other things, or simply obtaining very good kit. And they are happy to do that on day one, when by the very nature of being new, they are simply going to fall under that category of no idea, or at least at that stage, very little idea. But to label that approach negatively as all the gear, no idea, just seems completely counterintuitive. Why? Are you supposed to obtain suboptimal gear until you qualify for better stuff? Who says so? Now, I'm sure there are some examples where starting off on very high-end equipment doesn't actually make sense. If you're learning to fly a plane, I expect that starting off on a jet is not the best way to do it. But that is not a jet. It is a bicycle, and a 200-pound bicycle does not operate differently to that. It is not used in a different way to that. Sure, I found it tricky to start off on, but that's because it's a triathlon bike, not because it's an expensive bike. If it had been a cheap triathlon bike, it would have been equally hard to begin on. In fact, it might have even been worse. The gears might have not changed properly and the brakes might have been useless. And even in examples where the gear is harder to use if you buy more expensive stuff early on, it doesn't always make sense to deny yourself that if your budget allows for it. I took up paddleboarding last year because I wanted to enter a race that was half paddleboard, half run, a duathlon. Went to the paddleboard shop. I said, I want a board that is quick. He said, you can have one that is rapid, but it will be skinny narrow, it'll be long, and it'll be expensive. I said, okay, the alternative is what? He said, well, a shorter one that is wider, it'll be slower, cheaper, a lot easier to learn on. I said, dude, you had me at rapid. And I took home the skinny long board, and it was hard to learn on. It wobbles. Even now using it, the thing is unstable. There was an accelerated learning curve, but there was an accelerated learning curve that meant I came third place on that race. It was the right board for me as long as I committed the time into learning to use it properly. I didn't just assume that the board alone would be enough. I trained on that thing like a maniac. For me, when I hear people say, oh, the gear, no idea, I think no. It's start as you mean to go on. And it is not just equipment, it is attitude as well. When I begin something, I am happy to set my expectations way, way beyond where my current abilities suggest those expectations should be set. Will I ever get there? Who knows? Who cares? I will worry about that in due course. 10 years ago, I did a stand-up comedy course for 6 weeks. I was very bored. Week 2, over lunch, we're all talking about the jokes that each other are writing, and someone said to me, you don't have any swearing in any of your stuff. I said, no, my thinking is that if I'm not swearing, it would increase the chances of me getting it on television. And everyone laughed and said, yeah, because week 2 of your course is the right time to be worrying about whether your material is suitable for Letterman or not. Within 9 months, I was on television. It was nothing too special. It was more of a Britain's Got Talent for stand-up comedians. But it was on television, I wasn't swearing, and the judges seemed to like it.
That's a bankable television set.
Yeah.
You could put him on Letterman.
Even now, in these videos, I don't swear, just as a matter of habit, unless I've got a really, really good point to make. Here's a more recent example. Last year I started obstacle course racing. I did my first one, fell in love with it, researched it and discovered that Spartan races were the ones that took it seriously. That's where the competition was taking place. I entered my first one. I was told, enter in the open category because the guys doing age group, they are taking it super serious. You don't want to start off there. I started off there. I came last. I came home. I bought the expensive trainers. I bought the equipment to help me practice in here, swinging off the beams and doing chin-ups and monkey bars and goodness knows what. And I trained like an absolute madman. And all year I went back every weekend and did another obstacle course race and another obstacle course race. And early on, I entered the World Championships obstacle course racing event that was at the end of the year that required a certain degree of qualification to be able to go and do it. And it wasn't until the very last race of the year, prior to those championships, that I ended up qualifying. But I did qualify. Would I have qualified without setting my expectations that high early on? Not a hope. Was it even that hard to qualify? Not particularly, but you did need to be better than most. In both of those cases, did it matter that I achieved what I achieved? No, absolutely not. Had I failed to do that, it would have still been fun simply doing what I was doing. But had I not set my sights so high early on, would I have ever achieved what I did? Absolutely not a hope. And part of setting those goals high was a commitment of time, of learning, and ultimately, in some cases, of some money. If you commit enough, you will find yourself committed. I am well aware what turning up on a race with that bike looks like. People have said to me, fair play, I would not have the balls to turn up with that bike looking like it does and being the level that you are. And living up to that bike's abilities motivates me. The idea that if I just roll up with it without having put in the effort, I'm going to look like a complete tool is motivating. I will never be good enough to completely justify owning that bike, no way near. But if I can move in that direction, that is a forward movement. In summary, here's my analogy that sums it all up. I take up mountain climbing, and I apologise to mountain climbers. This is an analogy. I don't expect that this is actually how mountain climbing works. I approach the mountain I want to climb as a beginner. There are 3 ropes I can choose from. There is a very expensive rope that appears to be amazing. It feels awesome, comes in lovely colours. I'm told it's used by the best mountain climbers in the world. There is a middle rope that appears quite nice, it feels alright. I'm told it's used by most people. And then there's a really rubbish looking rope that appears to be a piece of shit. I have no ambitions to be the best mountain climber in the world, not at all. Be nice to be better than most, but not the best. My budget though allows for any of those ropes to be used. So I pick the best rope. And no sooner am I off the ground than someone shouting down to me from above that I appear to be someone who has all the gear and no idea. I am on the wrong rope. I should be on the middle rope, or even better, on the shitty looking rope. I certainly shouldn't be on the rope I'm on. That is a rope for people who are climbing to the top of the mountain. That cannot possibly be me. I'm only a beginner. Get off that rope. I ignore them and I continue up the rope. And as I do, I begin to notice a few things. First of all, I notice that the rope that I'm using, actually to begin with, was a bit harder than the other ropes. Maybe it wasn't quite so grippy, but now I am further up and getting more competent. I don't need that extra grippiness. I find I can move on it faster. And again, mountain climbers, I get grippy ropes. That's not how it works. It's an analogy, I know. The rope I'm on is way more than I need, but I'm enjoying it. I look across at the shitty rope and there are people falling off it left, right and centre. It appears to snap on a regular basis. I'm glad I didn't use that rope. And I notice that the middle rope is perfectly fine and would have suited me, would suit me now, would suit me for many, many years of mountain climbing, learning to come. But I also notice that it doesn't appear to go all the way to the top of the mountain, or at least very few people are using for that. Most people, once much, much higher than me, are actually moving across to the rope that I am using. And beneath all this, I look up and I'm very comfortable with my choice. The rope I'm on goes way, way further than I will ever need to go. It will always be sufficient for my needs. It is never going to be the limiting factor in my mountain climbing ability. I'm not going to need to change rope, and it's certainly not going to snap. In fact, the only downside to my rope appears to be that some people on the other ropes don't like that I'm on it. Although I am given peace of mind because it's only some of the people saying that. The majority of the people on the other ropes are saying that the rope I'm on appears to be awesome and they look forward to joining me on that rope at some point in the future, perhaps even wish they'd started on that rope. Either way, they are very happy with the choice I have made. And occasionally even greater peace of mind is given, even more reassurance that I've made the right decision, because somebody right up at the top of the mountain, a world-class climber on the same rope as me, will shout down and say, "That's an interesting choice for a beginner to have made." To which I'll say, "Well, yes, but I start as I mean to go on." And they'll say, "Well, good choice then, because that is a great fucking rope." By which I mean bike, because it's an analogy.